Some people believe they're always right, that rules don't apply to them, and that their complaints justify any behavior. They demand to speak to managers, ignore safety warnings, and refuse to accept when they're wrong. Most of the time, these encounters end with nothing more than frustrated employees and annoyed bystanders. But sometimes, that sense of entitlement becomes deadly. It was March 15, 2017, at a discount retail store in Bakersfield, California. The late afternoon rush was light, with customers moving quietly through checkout lanes as employees worked through routine transactions. Among them was Brenda Caldwell, 38, who had been unemployed for several months and was living on alimony following a recent divorce. Former neighbors and court records later described a pattern of confrontational disputes with service workers and local businesses, often over minor issues. That afternoon, Caldwell approached the register, attempting to use an expired manufacturer's coupon for baby formula. Store records later confirmed the coupon had expired 6 months earlier and could not be accepted under company policy. The cashier declined the transaction and notified a supervisor, following standard procedure. Rather than leave or choose another form of payment, Caldwell insisted the refusal amounted to theft. She repeatedly demanded that police be involved, accusing staff of criminal behavior. After multiple attempts to de-escalate, the situation failed, and Caldwell refused to leave the counter area. Store management contacted local police to address the disturbance. By the time an officer arrived, the store manager had already attempted to resolve the situation by offering a $20 store credit equivalent to the coupon's face value. The offer would have closed the matter immediately. Caldwell refused. Body camera footage shows the officer calmly explaining that no theft had occurred and that the store was within policy. He advised Caldwell that accepting the store credit or leaving the premises were the available options. Surveillance footage shows other customers watching from nearby aisles as Caldwell remained at the counter, continuing the confrontation instead of disengaging. As the explanation continued, Caldwell's behavior became more forceful. She gestured toward staff and customers, repeatedly pointing and stepping closer to the officer despite his stationary position. Witnesses later described her as refusing to accept any outcome other than having the cashier arrested. The situation escalated further when Caldwell moved directly toward the officer. Security footage shows her extending both hands toward his duty belt. Investigators later confirmed she reached for the taser mounted on his right side. The officer stepped backward instinctively to protect his equipment and maintain distance. Caldwell had already committed her forward momentum. With her weight shifted and arms extended, she lost balance as the officer moved away. Witnesses described her feet slipping backward as she stumbled, unable to recover. She fell heavily onto the concrete floor, striking the back of her head with significant force. Several customers reported hearing the impact. The fall rendered Caldwell immediately unresponsive. Surveillance footage shows her lying motionless as blood began pooling beneath her head. The officer radioed for emergency medical assistance and began checking for signs of life while store staff cleared the area. Paramedics arrived within minutes and found Caldwell unconscious with fixed, dilated pupils, indicating severe neurological injury. She was intubated on scene and transported to a nearby trauma center. Imaging later revealed extensive intracranial hemorrhaging and catastrophic brain swelling caused by blunt force trauma. Despite emergency intervention, the injuries were not survivable. Brenda Caldwell was pronounced deceased at 5:23 p.m. The official cause of death was traumatic brain injury resulting from an accidental fall. A review of surveillance footage, body camera video, and witness statements confirmed that Caldwell had initiated the physical escalation and that no force was used against her. The incident was ruled an accidental death resulting from her own actions during a confrontation that could have ended safely at multiple earlier points. It was August 22, 2016, at a coffee shop in Scottsdale, Arizona. The afternoon rush proceeded normally until a customer complaint turned fatal. Diane Thornfield, 45, was a real estate agent known for leaving scathing one-star reviews and demanding order remakes. She had been banned from 2 other coffee shops for aggressive conduct toward staff. Her sense of entitlement had only grown worse since her recent business struggles, leading her to take out her frustrations on service workers who couldn't fight back. Thornfield ordered a large caramel macchiato and immediately complained it was too sweet, demanding a complete remake. When the barista explained the drink was made to standard recipe, Thornfield escalated to the manager, claiming incompetence and demanding compensation. The manager offered a full refund, but Thornfield refused, demanding free drinks for an entire month as compensation for emotional distress. She threatened to sue the company for damages. Security footage shows her voice rising as she berated multiple employees for several minutes. A customer observed the confrontation from a nearby table. During her tirade, Thornfield spotted another customer's specialty smoothie sitting unattended on the pickup counter. She declared she would take that drink since the staff couldn't make hers correctly. The smoothie contained a shellfish-based collagen supplement and was clearly labeled with allergen warnings. The customer who had ordered it immediately attempted to warn Thornfield about the shellfish content, but she interrupted, stating she knew what she was doing and didn't need advice from strangers. Witnesses observed Thornfield grab the smoothie while dismissing concerns about the allergen warning label. Multiple customers tried to intervene, pointing to the warning, but she dismissed their concerns as harassment. Security footage shows her raising the smoothie defiantly while making dismissive gestures toward other customers. Thornfield consumed the entire 20-ounce smoothie while standing near the counter. She continued berating employees for several more minutes, demanding corporate contact information. Initially showing no symptoms, Thornfield then began complaining of stomach discomfort and facial tingling, which she attributed to stress from poor service. Within 20 minutes of consumption, witnesses observed her lips and face beginning to swell noticeably. By 25 minutes, Thornfield's throat had swollen significantly, restricting her breathing. Her voice became hoarse and strained. She finally became alarmed when she could barely speak, but her airway was already severely compromised. Multiple customers called 911 while staff searched for an EpiPen. Paramedics arrived within 8 minutes and immediately assessed her compromised airway. They administered intramuscular epinephrine and established IV access for antihistamine administration. Despite emergency airway attempts and steroid administration, Thornfield's throat had swollen completely shut. The team initiated emergency ventilation while attempting intubation, but severe laryngeal edema made airway management impossible. Under trauma protocol, they transported her to the regional medical center while continuing resuscitation efforts. Upon arrival at the emergency department, the trauma team attempted emergency surgical airway procedures. Despite aggressive intervention, including additional epinephrine and fluid resuscitation, Thornfield went into cardiac arrest. After prolonged resuscitation efforts, she was pronounced deceased at 4:17 p.m. Security footage confirmed Thornfield had taken the drink without permission and ignored multiple warnings about its contents. The investigation found no fault with the establishment's handling. The medical examiner confirmed death was caused by anaphylactic shock due to shellfish protein ingestion. The death was classified as accidental. It was May 14, 2016, at a protected wetland reserve along the Georgia-Florida border. Late spring conditions were calm, with still water and clear visibility across the marsh channels. Despite posted restrictions, the area was under heightened enforcement due to peak alligator nesting season. Crystal Brennan, 43, was an office manager from Jacksonville who had recently begun pursuing solo outdoor activities. In the months leading up to the incident, she had developed a reputation among local businesses for confrontational behavior when denied service or challenged on rules. Witnesses later described her as dismissive of authority and openly critical of anyone she perceived as limiting her choices. That morning, Brennan arrived at a licensed eco-tour outfitter near the reserve and attempted to rent a kayak for a solo trip into restricted waterways. Staff declined the request, explaining that the area was closed to unguided access due to active alligator nesting and elevated risk. A wildlife officer present reinforced the restriction and cited ongoing enforcement efforts tied to recent aggressive animal behavior. Brennan reacted negatively to the refusal, accusing the business of exaggerating danger to upsell guided tours. She dismissed the warnings and left the property visibly irritated after being denied service. Instead of abandoning the plan, Brennan drove to an informal launch site commonly used by local fishermen. Multiple posted signs clearly marked the surrounding waters as restricted wildlife habitat. Yet, she continued unloading a newly purchased inflatable kayak and preparing to enter the water. Nearby visitors attempted to warn her about seasonal danger and active alligator nesting, but she did not slow or alter her actions, proceeding into the channel despite the warnings and clear restrictions. Brennan paddled directly into the restricted channels, moving deeper into the marsh despite the visible signage. A birdwatcher positioned on elevated ground, approximately 200 yards away, was observing wildlife activity through binoculars when he noticed her kayak drifting toward a known nesting bank. A large female alligator was positioned near the shoreline between the water and a concealed nest. The animal displayed defensive territorial behavior, including raised posture and forceful tail strikes against the surface. Brennan continued approaching the area instead of retreating. As the kayak entered close range, the alligator surged forward in a defensive strike. The impact punctured the inflatable hull in multiple locations, causing rapid deflation. Brennan was thrown into the water as the kayak collapsed beneath her. The water was dark and thick with vegetation. Brennan struggled to maintain flotation as her movements became erratic. The alligator made additional defensive contact before withdrawing toward the nesting bank. Within moments, Brennan disappeared beneath the surface. The birdwatcher immediately contacted emergency services and provided responders with the last observed location. Wildlife officers secured the area and initiated a recovery operation. Due to shallow depth and dense vegetation, search teams relied on coordinated wading, line sweeps, and manual probing rather than electronic detection. After 2 days of searching, recovery teams located Brennan's body, entangled in submerged vegetation several yards from the initial strike location. She was pronounced deceased at the scene. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be drowning, with contributing factors including puncture wounds consistent with alligator defensive contact and entanglement in aquatic vegetation. Toxicology results were negative. The death was classified as accidental, resulting from unauthorized entry into restricted wildlife habitat during nesting season. It was June 8, 2018, on Interstate 405 in Los Angeles, California. Early evening traffic was heavy, but flowing steadily as commuters moved through the corridor under clear conditions. What began as a routine drive escalated into a fatal incident within minutes. Valerie Hutchins, 52, was an insurance adjuster with a documented history of aggressive driving. Police records showed multiple prior road rage-related calls involving her vehicle. In the weeks before the incident, she had also been terminated from her job following repeated conflicts with clients and co-workers. Traffic camera footage showed Hutchins rapidly approaching a compact car traveling in the left lane. The compact car maintained the speed of surrounding traffic and signaled before attempting to change lanes when space became available. Hutchins closed the distance quickly and began tailgating within a few feet of the rear bumper. Dashcam recordings from surrounding vehicles captured Hutchins repeatedly flashing her high beams and weaving between lanes to maintain proximity to the compact car. Her vehicle made abrupt, lateral movements, cutting off other drivers and exceeding the surrounding traffic flow by a significant margin. The pursuit continued for several miles through congested lanes without interruption. Multiple motorists activated horns as Hutchins' driving became increasingly erratic. She remained fixed behind the compact car, maintaining close following distance while drifting across lane markers. Traffic cameras recorded her vehicle accelerating sharply, then braking aggressively, creating instability in the surrounding flow. Near an exit ramp, the compact car moved onto the right shoulder and came to a stop. Instead of continuing past, Hutchins pulled over as well, stopping partially in the right travel lane. The position of her vehicle immediately obstructed approaching traffic and reduced reaction time for drivers behind her. An approaching tractor-trailer traveling at highway speed became visible in traffic camera footage moments later. Hutchins exited her vehicle and walked into the active travel lane toward the stopped compact car. She remained in the lane as traffic continued to approach, disregarding audible warning signals from nearby vehicles. The compact car remained stationary on the shoulder while emergency services were contacted. Hutchins stood in the travel lane for several seconds as the tractor-trailer closed distance. The truck driver applied full braking upon identifying a pedestrian in the roadway, but the stopping distance required at speed exceeded the remaining space. The collision occurred despite emergency braking. Hutchins was struck while positioned in the active lane and was thrown approximately 40 feet toward the center divider. The impact was captured by multiple dashboard cameras from vehicles behind the truck. California Highway Patrol units arrived within minutes and immediately requested medical response. Officers secured the scene and closed multiple lanes to prevent secondary collisions. A supervisor coordinated traffic control while accident reconstruction teams documented the scene. Paramedics located Hutchins, unresponsive with extensive traumatic injuries. Rapid assessment indicated injuries incompatible with life, and no vital signs were present. She was pronounced deceased at the scene. Investigators collected witness statements and reviewed camera footage. Event data recorder analysis from the tractor trailer confirmed immediate braking and no evasive opportunity. Reconstruction findings showed Hutchins had positioned herself in an active travel lane prior to impact. The freeway remained partially closed for several hours during evidence collection and roadway cleanup. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be massive blunt force trauma consistent with high-speed vehicular impact. Toxicology results were negative. The death was classified as accidental, resulting from pedestrian presence in active freeway traffic following a road rage incident. It was July 4th, 2015, at a community pool in Plano, Texas. The neighborhood celebration was at its peak, with families cycling in and out of the water under clear summer skies. Heavy use had reduced water clarity, a common condition during holiday gatherings. Pamela Westbrook, 41, was the Homeowners Association president and a substitute teacher. Although she had completed chemistry coursework many years earlier, she had no professional experience in pool operations. Within the association, she was known for routinely challenging contractors, disputing maintenance decisions, and asserting personal authority over technical matters. As the party continued, Westbrook fixated on the pool's cloudy appearance. She directed her attention to the on-site pool technician, who had already completed scheduled treatment earlier in the day. After a brief inspection, the technician maintained existing protocols and did not alter chemical levels, citing circulation requirements and safety limits during high bather load. Westbrook rejected the assessment. Witnesses later described her positioning herself between the technician and the equipment area, repeatedly interrupting attempts to explain the system. Despite not being licensed to handle pool chemicals, she used her position within the association to remove the technician from the property and assume control of the maintenance process. With the technician gone, Westbrook accessed the locked maintenance shed. Surveillance footage later confirmed she retrieved multiple factory-sealed bags of calcium hypochlorite pool shock. The containers displayed standard hazard warnings regarding handling incompatible chemicals and the risk of toxic gas formation in confined spaces. Westbrook moved to the pool's equipment pad, where the circulation pump and chemical feeder were housed. The system already contained stabilized chlorine tablets from earlier treatment. Rather than waiting for circulation or dilution, she opened several bags and poured the contents directly into the chemical mixing chamber adjacent to the feeder intake, bypassing standard safeguards. Within minutes, a chemical reaction began inside the enclosed housing. Concentrated chlorine compounds interacted, producing chlorine gas that vented outward. A yellowish haze formed around the equipment area, accompanied by an increasingly sharp, irritating odor. Pool users began backing away as coughing and eye irritation spread. Several parents gathered children and moved toward the exits. Despite the visible change in conditions, Westbrook remained at the equipment pad, leaning over the housing and continuing to adjust valves and inspect the system as gas continued to escape. Exposure effects intensified rapidly. Westbrook began coughing violently and showed signs of respiratory distress, but did not leave the area. Moments later, she collapsed beside the equipment housing and became unresponsive. Emergency services were contacted by multiple bystanders. Fire department units arrived and identified a hazardous materials incident, establishing an evacuation perimeter around the pool complex. Several residents were evaluated on scene for minor respiratory symptoms and released. Paramedics found Westbrook unconscious with severe respiratory compromise. Oxygen support and intravenous access were initiated, and she was transported under emergency conditions to a regional medical center. At the hospital, bronchoscopy confirmed extensive chemical injury throughout the airways. Despite aggressive respiratory support, including mechanical ventilation, her condition deteriorated as pulmonary edema and chemical pneumonitis developed. Westbrook died approximately 3 hours after exposure. Post-mortem examination confirmed fatal inhalation injury from chlorine gas. Toxicology results were negative. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be acute respiratory failure due to improper chemical handling. The manner of death was classified as accidental. It was November 12, 2017, at a mid-range hotel in Birmingham, Alabama. Evening check-in was underway as guests gathered in the lobby for wedding-related arrivals and weekend events. Elevator traffic increased steadily as families moved between floors. Joyce Whitman, 49, was an insurance claims processor from Tuscaloosa attending a relative's wedding. Hotel records and family statements later confirmed she suffered from severe claustrophobia, but routinely placed herself in situations that triggered it. She also had significant, undiagnosed coronary artery disease, discovered only after her death. While waiting near the elevators, Whitman became involved in a dispute with hotel staff regarding other guests in the lobby. Surveillance footage showed her refusing to step away from the front desk area as employees attempted to redirect her attention and manage the growing line of check-ins. As an elevator arrived, Whitman abruptly moved away from the desk and rushed toward the closing doors. She forced her way inside just as they shut, entering a crowded elevator already near capacity. The doors closed normally, and the car began to ascend. Within seconds, Whitman exhibited signs of escalating distress. Security footage inside the elevator later showed her pacing, breathing rapidly, and repeatedly striking the control panel. In the process, she activated the emergency stop function, bringing the elevator to an abrupt halt between the second and third floors. With the elevator immobilized, Whitman shifted her attention to the doors. Despite posted safety signage and audible system alerts, she used a hard object from her personal belongings to apply leverage at the door seam, forcing the panels apart just enough to create an opening. When the doors partially separated, she lowered her upper body toward the gap between the elevator car and the hallway threshold. The elevator car was stopped several feet below the floor level. As Whitman attempted to pull herself upward, her upper body cleared the doorway while her lower body remained inside the car. Witnesses inside the elevator later described her becoming wedged in the opening as the doors began to close under automatic safety tension. The closing force pinned Whitman in a bent position across the threshold. The configuration restricted chest expansion and airflow, causing rapid respiratory compromise. Emergency call logs confirmed an alert was received from the elevator system reporting a trapped passenger. Hotel staff contacted emergency services immediately, while instructing remaining occupants to remain still. Fire department rescue units arrived within minutes and initiated elevator extraction procedures. Hydraulic tools were used to force the doors open and relieve pressure on Whitman's torso. Paramedics found Whitman unresponsive with no detectable pulse. She was removed fully from the elevator, and resuscitation efforts began in the hallway. Despite advanced life support measures, she could not be revived and was pronounced deceased at the scene. Post-mortem examination determined the cause of death to be positional asphyxia, with contributing factors of blunt force compression during the attempted self-extraction. Severe coronary artery disease was noted as a contributing condition, but not the primary cause. Toxicology results were negative. The medical examiner classified the death as accidental, resulting from unauthorized interference with elevator safety systems and an attempted exit from a stalled elevator car. Thanks for watching. Want to watch more? Click on your screen now.